Hi everyone, and welcome to our 6th video. In this video, we will be looking at how to accomplish some of the descriptive statistics that you have read about in your reading by utilizing Stata. In the next few minutes, we will be looking at how to do a frequency distribution, a basic histogram, as well as find the mean, median, quartiles, and standard deviation of a continuous variable. Let's start by opening the auto dataset that is built in to our Stata. As we have seen in the past, we will do that by typing sysuseauto in the command window. This loads the dataset, and we see all the variables in the variable window. This is where it is important to know the difference between a categorical and a continuous variable. When we are talking about things like frequencies and histograms, we are talking about categorical variables. Descriptive statistics like mean, median, and standard deviation are going to refer to a continuous variable. Sometimes you can use your intuition from the variable name to figure that out. For examples, variables like make and model and foreign are more likely going to be categorical, whereas something like price is more likely to be continuous. Although it could be categorical depending on how it was created, and we'll have more on that in a later video. Let's start with a categorical variable. The command that we are going to use to get a frequency distribution is tabulate. And you can truncate that down to tab if you'd like. I'm going to go ahead and use the entire command. So if we type into the command window tabulate and then make, we will get a frequency distribution. Of course, as you can see, this is not a very helpful distribution because the frequency of each is 1. This dataset has make and model in one variable, so there is only one observation for each. If we had a variable that was truly make, we'd see more variability in the frequencies. So let's try another one. Let's type tabulate foreign. And what you see here is a frequency distribution of all the observations in terms of whether the car is domestic or foreign. Specifically, we can see that 52 observations are domestic cars and 22 are foreign. We can also see the percentages of the total that each represents and a cumulative total, less helpful with only 2 values. So let's do one more. Let's do tabulate rep 78. Rep 78 is a ranking of the car's repair history in 1978. We can see that this variable is ordinal, a categorical variable where the order matters, and we sometimes treat this as categorical and sometimes as continuous. Here we will treat it as categorical. We can see all the frequencies. This data set has 2 observations with the value of 1, 8 with the value of 2, and so on. We can see the percentages of each one in this column. And in this one, we can see the usefulness of the cumulative percentage. 57.97% have a value of 3 or lower. But this is interesting. The total observations, 69, does not match the total observations from the first tabulations, which was 74. This is because of missing data. If we were to open the data browser and scroll through the rep 78 variable, we'd see that some of them have a period instead of a value. That means that the data are missing from these observations. Could be the records were incomplete, they didn't have a repair record that year, etc. So if we go back to the command window and type tabulate rep 78, comma, missing, we get a different output. The same distributions as before, except this time we have told Stata to include missing observations in the tabulations. And you can see here that there are 5 observations that are period, or missing, and that our total now matches up. Missing data are very important to keep in mind as we move forward. So let's do a quick histogram with this variable. To do the most basic histogram, we can just type histogram rep78, and you will get a histogram to pop up. Now here you might notice that there is some strange spacing between all of the values. Well, here's where the point and click can be helpful. So let's do this histogram again, but instead of using the histogram command, let's use our mouse to click on graphics, and then on histogram. A dialog box will open. What you will see are that some things, quite frankly, that they will not make sense yet. But look at the first part here. Data are continuous is the default, but we know that we want to treat this as a discrete categorical variable. So let's change that. Then if we look at y-axis, we see that density is selected. Now we might not know exactly what that one does, but we do know that we are trying to measure frequency. Now let's select our variable and then click Submit. You see the bars are centered over the values now, and the word density has changed to frequency. So this bar is centered over 1, this bar is centered over 2, etc. Now, there are a lot of tabs up here that you can explore, and you can always use the help histogram command to get the help file. One last thing I will point out is that you can see that when we did point and click, Stata actually shows the command here. So if you ever needed to write this code into a do file, you can use point and click to find the right syntax and then copy this code into your do file. So let's move on to our continuous variables. And let's do price. To get the mean and the standard deviation, all we need to do is type summarize price. And if you want, you can truncate summarize down to SU. The output we get shows us how many observations, the mean, the standard deviation, as well as the minimum and maximum values. But we wanted also to see the median and even the quartiles. For this, we use the same command, but add the detail option, which can be truncated to D. So we type summarize price, comma, detail. The output we get has more detail, as you can see. We still get the same information of mean and standard deviation. We can still see the minimum and maximum because this output shows the 4 lowest and the 4 highest values. But we also have a bunch of percentiles. The 50th percentile is our median, and then the 25th percentile and 75th percentiles would show our quartiles. This stuff down here, variance, skewness, kurtosis, don't worry about that. It's well beyond the scope of this course. A couple of other things about the summarize command. First, you can summarize several continuous variables at once. Watch if I type summarize price mpg headroom, I get summary output for all three. This also works with the detail option. Secondly, Stata automatically excludes missing data from its calculations, and there's not a missing option here, which makes sense. There's no mathematical way to include a missing observation into a calculation. There are ways to estimate what those missing values would be, but that is also well beyond this course. So if we now treat rep78 as a continuous variable and do the summarize command, we'll see that the observations are only 69. And if we try the missing command, we will get an error. So I think that's all for now. Lots of stuff I threw at you, but we will go over all of this in class. See you there.